People always ask, Scott, why are you so fascinated with ancient astronaut theory? Don't you realize that it's all a bunch of malarkey? That it's not something that a learned person should entertain, let alone believe? How can anyone expect to take you seriously? To answer that question, I'm going to ask you to join me, Scott Michael Swank, on a journey into the cosmos' forbidden realms. Invariably, my answer to this question always links back to a single moment. It was during the second year of my undergrad at Corbin-Smouth University, major undeclared. I was in Professor Kelly Two Shoes McCormick's archaeology class. He was a longtime scholar focusing on ancient Huntero-tribalistic cultures, obsessed with how they ate animals and hunted on the fields. He taught me what he called the sham of modern archaeology. This is an idea that with modern archaeologists, people who claim to be scientists, it's the idea that orthodox trumps evidence. In his book, The Sham of Modern Archaeology, Professor McCormick states, modern archaeology, while loosely tied to real academic disciplines, is nothing but a pseudo-academic, pseudo-scientific sham. The discipline is governed by a cabal of hard-nosed elderly academics who refuse to entertain even the smallest outsider theory, living in constant fear of new discoveries that might challenge the sanctity of their long-established, though often dubiously supported, ideas about our past. End quote. You see, ladies and gentlemen, anything that deviates too far from our established understanding of history is seen as nothing more than blasphemy. These academics are invested in their own pet theories, their own research that they've developed over decades. Having to throw that away with a new discovery could be a hard pill for anybody to swallow. World governments are doing their part to maintain the orthodoxy as well. The Italian government, for instance, insists that a site in Naples holds the first ancient machinery used to manufacture cheese. New evidence from the past few years shows that cheese making occurred in China and Peru over 4,000 years prior, but mainstream archaeologists, who largely agree with the Italian government, claim that that equipment was instead used to process blood in religious rituals. And beyond our government, there's also larger, more well-entrenched forces working to keep our true history a secret, but that's something we'll have to touch on in a later episode. Today, I'd like to instead focus on one of the greatest cultures that our planet has ever known, and that few people have even heard of. I'm talking about the great Kushnar Empire, a Huntero-tribalic culture from what's now modern-day Chad. You see, the Kushnar were great warriors who survived by hunting ferocious beasts in the badlands around them, including hippopotamuses and zebras. They had no agriculture or religion to speak of, and no real noteworthy settlements save for a single monolithic construction known as Honolulu. You see, the Kushnar weren't thought to possess the architectural skill needed to build a site like Honolulu. You see, the Kushnar had no established dwellings. They lived in tents made of animal hides and moved nightly based on the movement of prey and water availability. Creating a temple isn't something that these kind of people are thought to do. Modern stonemasons are left in awe when they visit the site because even they have questions as to how it was constructed. For instance, the two stellar chambers at the south side of the site feature massive capstones that weigh 30 tons each and are lifted 30 feet in the air. Honolulu would have required an army to construct at a time when organized society wasn't thought to exist. You see, Honolulu was built 12,000 years ago, 8,000 years before the Egyptians started building at Giza. You see where I'm going with this, folks? Mainstream archaeology has issues with the Kushnar Empire's existence. It contradicts the currently understood evolution of human society, which moves in a linear fashion from huntero-tribalic cultures to organized agricultural societies known as plant havers to organized cities with common religious backgrounds to modern spacefaring man. The Kushnar Empire instead shows that humans had villages before they were plant havers. Modern archaeologists claim that Honolulu must have been built by a later civilization. Evidence for their claims includes tool marks that are far more advanced than the stone tools wielded by the Kushnar. If you visit Honolulu, these tool marks are everywhere. In the rock you'll find divots perhaps 6 inches deep and only a few millimeters across, reminiscent of power drill holes. You'll also find long cracks of uniform length and width and depth that look like they were made by a carpenter's skill saw. I know that I would have trouble making these marks in the stone even using modern tools. How did this so-called huntero-tribalic culture achieve this? I'm sure that mainstream archaeologists have created some hoops to jump through to explain this historical aberration, but the evidence simply isn't on their side. Carbon dating of calcified zebra dung, which the Kushnar used as an adhesive in tool making, which was found at the site, supports an age of 12,000 years. That begs the question, how did the Kushnar people build Honolulu with nothing more than Stone Age technology? The answer to this question is problematic to most mainstream archaeologists because they simply don't want to hear it. But the evidence strongly supports that Honolulu was built, at least in part, by extraterrestrial visitors. Now I know, you're reaching for your dial or your mouse, trying to turn me off, but hear me out on this. What do you think is more likely? That ancient man was able to build a diamond-tipped drill, which would have required the power of an internal combustion engine or some electric motor, or that human beings from a nearby star visited the Kushnar people and aided them in Honolulu's construction? There are no other alternatives. I might not know much, but I know that the Kushnar couldn't go to the local Home Depot and pick up a Hilti, and that leaves only one option. German philosopher Heinrich Schnitzelman said it best when he said, "When you've exhausted all testable theories in the realm of the possible, to find the truth you must go deeper, into the cosmos' forbidden realms." End quote. That's a quote that's always sit with me. And it's the source of the name of this show, if you haven't figured that out already. Archaeology, like any discipline, has its own forbidden realms. One needs no further evidence of ancient astronaut theory being one of these forbidden realms than by looking at how anyone who makes an argument about Honolulu being built by extraterrestrials, how they're treated. No matter how strong the evidence, no matter how convincing an argument can be made, this simply will not be entertained by mainstream archaeology or mainstream archaeologists. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Scott, you keep talking about the evidence for ancient astronauts being involved with this. Give us that evidence. Well, here goes. The first and perhaps most convincing piece of evidence comes from the oral histories of the Kushnar people. They claim that they were visited by beings from a local star known as Carnos B. Carnos is known to modern astronomers as a single-star system. It doesn't have a Carnos B, but recent analysis using gravitational imaging of the star by NASA's most advanced telescopes indicates that the star has a wobble and that there is a Carnos B. We don't know if Carnos B has planets or if those planets are inhabited, but it is a possibility. What's more, Honolulu itself, which has a central shaft which culminates in a bulbous tip with a thin slit opening. If you stand at the back of the shaft and look out the slit, one night a year it's looking directly at Carnos B. Now, I think it's safe to assume that a spacefaring culture that could visit other planets would be in possession of tools comparable to a power drill or a skill saw, and that explains the tool markings. These aliens also possessed some sort of crane or magnetic lift device, perhaps something anti-gravitational, that explains how these huge monolithic stones were suspended in the air without the need for mere human strength. Further evidence can be found in a stone tablet which documents the final moments of the Kushnar people, which was found only meters from Honolulu. The tablet was authored by a man named Jesnar, who was visited by the creatures from Carnos B one evening, who then explained to him that the Kushnar were ready to transcend to a higher plane, and that Jesnar would become their vessel on Earth. Masses of human remains found around the Honolulu site show that the Kushnar didn't survive much longer than a week after the stone tablet's authoring. Mainstream archaeologists say that Jesnar had some sort of mental illness and killed his compatriots out of malice. I don't believe that, folks, and I don't think any of you do either. How could Jesnar, one man, overpower his compatriots if he had nothing more than a bone club? Some sort of weapon of mass destruction must have been used to destroy the Kushnar people in one fell swoop. I don't think Jesnar had the ability to create a WMD, but the beings from Carnos B, they most certainly had the technology to build a nuclear bomb, or perhaps something even infinitely more horrific than even our most powerful weapons. And so we return to our initial question, Scott, why are you so fascinated with ancient astronaut theory? Whenever I'm asked that, my mind drifts to the Kushnar Empire, to Carnos B, and to Jesnar, and to Honolulu, and to that fateful day in Professor Two Shoes McCormick's archaeology class. When I finally answer the question, it's always with my own question. Why aren't you fascinated with ancient astronaut theory? Because in a lot of ways, it's the only theory that makes sense.